Well, another day of trading is done and CleanSpark is up another 24%. Year to date, this is crazy. Year to date, CleanSpark is now up over 87%. And I'll show you a chart here really quickly. You can kind of see CleanSpark's performance compared to other Bitcoin miners and Bitcoin itself. This was as of the close on Friday, so not taking into consideration today's trading. But as of Friday, CleanSpark was up 62% year to date. And the next closest was Bitfarms, up 24%. And then Bitcoin itself was up 23.5%. So up until today, there were only 2 Bitcoin mining stocks that were actually outperforming Bitcoin itself. And there were 7 Bitcoin mining companies outperforming the NASDAQ year to date. I'm guessing after today, that number's grown to like 10 probably. But actually, the majority of Bitcoin mining stocks have been red this year, and red in a big way. Like, we're talking 15, 24, 30%. The worst is Moss and Infrastructure, which I got to zoom out to show you this one. Down, you still can't see it, down 44.1% down here in the corner. That is ridiculous compared to CleanSpark's 62% gain. And I have to say, this is a lot of fun for me because I've been talking about CleanSpark longer than any other YouTuber on this platform has. And when I was buying CleanSpark a couple years ago, people would tell me, there's a reason CleanSpark is underperforming. They will never outperform. What are you doing, RexFinance? And now the tables have turned, and I can say the same thing now. There's a reason CleanSpark is outperforming, and it's because of things that I saw 2 years ago that people are just seeing now. And really, it boils down to 2 words that start with the same letter: efficiency and execution. Name me a better company in this space than CleanSpark at those 2 words. But I've updated my CleanSpark price target spreadsheet today. You'll see that by the year 2030, I actually think now CleanSpark could hit $1,000 per share. There's some contingencies on that, but I'll get into that later in this video. But if you guys are new here or returning and not yet subscribed, please subscribe down below. My channel's been growing like crazy, and it's thanks to this amazing community. So you guys watching this video, without further ado, let's get into this. So I actually want to start with this, and it's CleanSpark CFO who bought shares of stock in December of 2022. And if we go back to the stock chart of CleanSpark and we go back to 2022, you can see that there were rough times. In December of 2022, we were trading for less than $2 a share. And this is when the CFO of CleanSpark stepped up and bought shares with his own money. He didn't care what the markets were saying. While everybody was selling, he was buying. While everybody was fearful, he was greedy. His buys made the literal bottom of the stock. And I asked one question: did any other company's C-suite executives, so CEO, CFO, CTO, CMO, whatever, C-suite executives have the cojones to buy at the bottom of the market? Or ever? And then you can see here Gary V. I don't even try and say his last name because that's like asking for trouble. He bought 19,400 shares for $1.78 on December 16th of 2022. And then I said down here, his $35,000 investment at the time is now worth close to $400,000. And not to brag, but do you know who else was buying CleanSpark stock when nobody else wanted it in late 2022? This guy right here. We've been kicking the market's butt. If you want access to my buy and sell alerts as well as my price target spreadsheet that you'll see at the end of this video, consider joining my membership by hitting the join button located right next to the subscribe button, or hit my Patreon link in the pinned comment. It helps me avoid all of these crappy sponsorships that other YouTubers take. There's numerous benefits and perks to it, and if you don't find value in it, I will 100% refund you. And guess what? Nobody has yet to ask for a refund. So let that speak for itself. Now, what's the reason that CleanSpark is up 25% today? Well, a lot of it obviously has to do with the price of Bitcoin, which is sitting at $54,500. I remember in 2022, not to keep going back to 2022, but back in 2022, if you told people that Bitcoin would be $54,500 today at the beginning of 2024, most of the people would think you were crazy because at the time, most of the people were convinced that Bitcoin was going to fail and go below $10,000. And obviously that didn't happen. So a lot of investors were caught off guard, and now investors are trying to play catch up. But from its lows of late 2022, Bitcoin is now up 227%. It is going up basically in a straight diagonal line. I guess I can't say straight and diagonal. That's like an oxymoron, but it's practically going up in a straight line. It's going up very, very fast, I guess I should say. And there's a lot of reasons for that, which I'll show you now. Thanks to BitcoinStrategyPlatform.com, we can actually see the amount of inflows and basically the amount of Bitcoin that all these new Bitcoin ETFs have been buying. And it's kind of crazy. The most recent data we have is from Friday, February 23rd. So that's past Friday. Combined, these Bitcoin ETFs purchased 4,500 Bitcoin. Now, let's think about this. The daily new supply of Bitcoin is only 900 Bitcoin a day. So on Thursday and Friday of last week, there was literally 5 times more Bitcoin bought by ETFs than the amount of new supply on each of those respective days. That is why the price of Bitcoin is going up. There's an imbalance here happening where there's a huge amount of buying pressure and there's very limited new supply, and most people that buy Bitcoin aren't buying it to sell it the next day. Most people that buy Bitcoin are buying it to hedge against the risk that our current monetary system is going to fail, because who wants to rely on the Federal Reserve, right? All currencies that have ever existed in history have eventually failed for one reason or another. And I don't know about you, it might not happen in our lifetime, but eventually, more than likely, the US dollar is also going to fail. Bitcoin is a first of its kind, but I'll leave that for another video because we're talking about CleanSpark and the Bitcoin miners, so I'll leave that for another video because that's kind of a bird walk. And I already talked about efficiency and execution, which again, I think CleanSpark is the best at, bar none, in the entire Bitcoin mining space. But another reason why CleanSpark has started to outperform is because of their decision-making and foresight, which I guess could be grouped into this execution category. But while these other Bitcoin mining companies have had operational issues, CleanSpark has been the most consistent miner because of this execution. And lately, CleanSpark has been selling the least amount of Bitcoin out of any of these companies by a long shot. In January, CleanSpark sold less than 1% of their total production for the month, while Core Scientific sold 108% of their total production. Marathon Digital sold 48% of their production, and then you have several players that sold 100% of their production, and yada, yada, yada. But the bottom line is, CleanSpark is mining Bitcoin right now, and they're holding on to as much Bitcoin as they possibly can. And the thing that is ironic about this chart is that CleanSpark was the first public Bitcoin mining company back when Bitcoin hit its most recent all-time high to hit the sell button. They timed it about perfectly. They timed the top of the market about perfectly. They hit the sell button, and they were criticized heavily by the rest of the industry and investors in the space. And what's happened since then is every other company has started to sell their Bitcoin hodl for numerous reasons, but they were selling their production at $20,000 per Bitcoin rather than $65,000 per Bitcoin. And now, as Bitcoin has started to find a bottom and has started to recover, CleanSpark's basically the only company holding on to 100% of its production, while these other companies are still selling. Again, this probably gets into the execution category that I laid out, but the decision-making, the foresight, whatever you want to call it, is second to none in this industry. CleanSpark is incredible. Their management team is incredible at this. And just as a reminder, this is something that me and several of you watching this video saw 2 or 3 years ago when we were mocked for investing in CleanSpark. Sometimes in the stock market, and I'm actually going to rephrase that, most of the time in the stock market, it's not the best idea to follow the crowd, if that makes sense. You want to look for opportunity, and where opportunity lies is where there's no crowd. And this is something that I have tried to do repeatedly on this YouTube channel, which I think is the reason we've outperformed the stock market like crazy over the past years. Not even just CleanSpark, but most of my other stock picks have performed very well as well. Now, I'm not saying I haven't had mistakes and I haven't been wrong, but you see, when you're correct about some of these things, you can afford to be wrong and you will still outperform the stock market. Even Warren Buffett is wrong about some of his investments, and he's regarded as the best investor of all time. It's okay to make mistakes if you're right more than you're wrong. But anyways, I'll switch over to my price target spreadsheet, which again is made available to all my paid monthly members via YouTube or Patreon. Right now, and I've already mentioned this, 900 new Bitcoin are mined every single day. At the end of April, we're going to have what's called a halving event take place, where the total amount of Bitcoin mined daily gets cut in half to 450. This is also another reason you're probably seeing Bitcoin prices go up, because the new supply is getting cut in half. The reason this is a big deal is because you'll see on the screen here the total Bitcoin network hash rate. So just think of this as the number of computers mining Bitcoin in the network. It is at an all-time high as we approach this Bitcoin halving event. And this is for numerous reasons, but what's important to note is that at the end of April, the amount of Bitcoin that are mined every single day is going to get cut in half, which means a lot of these mining companies, their revenues are going to be cut in half, and their profits are going to be cut in half. And there's going to be a lot of businesses or Bitcoin mining companies that actually have to close their operations because either their energy costs aren't low enough to stay profitable, or they have older generation mining rigs, and as a result of that, they aren't profitable enough to keep operating after the halving event either. So what's likely to take place at the end of April is you're actually going to see the total Bitcoin network hash rate drop by 20%, 25%. I think it dropped by around 25% the last time a halving event took place. But obviously, the Bitcoin network is designed in a way for it to always be profitable to mine Bitcoin so that the network stays secure. If it's not profitable to mine Bitcoin, the network isn't going to be secure because there's going to be no computers that are securing the network. But it doesn't just have to be the price of Bitcoin going up that counteracts this reward getting cut in half. You're also likely to see the Bitcoin network difficulty rate be dropped tremendously as a result of these older generation miners coming offline, or these companies that have higher energy costs having to stop their operations. This is why I actually believe the Bitcoin mining space is going to be consolidated into 3, 4, maybe 5 companies. And I think CleanSpark has a realistic chance at being the biggest someday. Right now, they're the 3rd biggest, I think, by total Bitcoin mined. But if the difficulty to mine Bitcoin goes down, obviously that means it's easier to mine Bitcoin, which means you can mine more blocks in a shorter amount of time, which sort of counteracts the total block reward of Bitcoin that's getting cut in half. I know this is getting into the nitty-gritty details, but bottom line, as a result of the halving event coming up, there's going to be a lot of assets that come up for sale. Whether that's infrastructure that's tied to really cheap energy costs or power costs, or whether it's companies and individuals selling their higher efficiency miners because they don't have cheap enough power to be profitable. But a company like CleanSpark can swoop in and buy this infrastructure and continue to grow, because CleanSpark has one of the most efficient, if not the most efficient, mining fleets in the entire space. So they're not at risk there, and their power costs are also some of the lowest in the space. So there's not much risk there either. CleanSpark will be one of the operators that continue to operate after this halving event takes place. And this is actually why I see the company commanding 6.5% of the total network by the end of this year, by the end of 2024, and I have that growing to around 9% by 2030. Also important to note, if you're new to this channel, this spreadsheet is based off of Cathie Wood's $1.5 million per Bitcoin by the year 2030 prediction. So obviously, as the years go by, I have the price of Bitcoin appreciating because I believe in Bitcoin. And by the year 2030, I have the price of Bitcoin being $1.5 million. But for 2024, I have Bitcoin reaching $100,000, which makes CleanSpark's total revenue opportunity for the year over $1 billion. And then you can see how this grows year by year until we get to 2030, when I see the total revenue opportunity for CleanSpark sitting at $11 billion. And obviously, I think CleanSpark will continue to add to their HODL balance. So they're going to continue to mine Bitcoin, and they'll hold on to that Bitcoin on their balance sheet. And as a result of this, I think by the year 2030, CleanSpark could accumulate a total HODL balance of over 54,000 Bitcoin, which would be worth $81.5 billion itself. Now, this is where I've made some very important changes to this spreadsheet. By the year 2030, I now think CleanSpark could hit over $1,000 per share, which means the stock could return 5,477% from today's current price. What I didn't take into consideration previously is the fact that through the years, if CleanSpark stock price continues to go up, their dilution is going to get smaller and smaller and smaller. Think about it. If CleanSpark sold 1 million shares of new stock at $4 a share a year and a half ago or whenever that was, they would only raise $4 million. But today, they could sell 1 million new shares for $20 a share and raise $20 million. So this obviously gets more and more extreme as the price of CleanSpark stock goes up, which is why by 2026, I have the total amount of dilution coming down significantly to basically less than or on average 1 million new shares every single year. At this time, let's just take 2026 as an example and say that in 2026, CleanSpark hits $100 per share. Well, if they sell 1 million new shares, they just raise $100 million overnight like that without affecting their total shares outstanding that much. And the other adjustment I've made is actually decreasing my anticipated forward PE multiple from 25, 30, and 35, I think it was, down to 20, 25, and 30, which I think is very reasonable if Bitcoin continues to go up to $1.5 million per Bitcoin. Based on this PE multiple of a 25, I have CleanSpark stock hitting $1,135 per share. Now, it's important to note there is no guarantee that Bitcoin is going to hit $1.5 million by the year 2030. But regardless, I think this still represents a very good investing opportunity if you are a long-term investor and a long-term believer in Bitcoin. And sure, if you can time the tops and the bottoms, you can make a lot of money trading Bitcoin mining stocks as well. But the way I have beat the market in the past and the way that most successful investors have beat the market in the past is by buying and holding undervalued assets. And I think that's what you're doing if you're buying CleanSpark, even at $20 a share today. As long as you believe in Bitcoin over the long term, your investment in CleanSpark should do very well if Bitcoin does well. And I actually just spoke to some high schoolers last week and I made a comment. High schoolers like to make this more complicated than it has to be. If you buy companies that are growing profitably, your portfolio is more than likely going to grow profitably over the long term, even despite whatever current market condition you're in. Sure, 2022 was a rough year, and yeah, maybe you bought stocks at the top in 2021, but if you have a long-term time horizon, it's not going to matter that you bought at the top in 2021. And again, I'm not perfect. I've made some bad mistakes on my investing journey, but hopefully as a result of me making those mistakes, it can help you avoid making those same mistakes. So again, if you guys are new here or returning and not yet subscribed, please subscribe down below. And also, the best way for you to understand my process is to join that membership by hitting the join button located right next to the subscribe button or hitting my Patreon link in the pinned comment down below. But yeah, personally, right now, I'm not buying more CleanSpark stock. However, I don't think it's a bad idea. And if you believe in Bitcoin long-term, I wouldn't even think twice about it. Go ahead and buy it. I'm not a financial advisor. I don't have a crystal ball, unfortunately. But my scenario is probably much different than a lot of people's scenarios because I accumulated so many shares of CleanSpark near the bottom that investment, similar to the CFO's investment that he made at the bottom of the market, is worth an incredible amount of money right now, meaning it makes up a very large percentage of my overall stock market portfolio currently. And based on my own risk tolerance, obviously I'm a very risky investor because I'm young, and if I make mistakes, I can recover. But to avoid further concentration risk in my portfolio, I'm not choosing to buy more shares of CleanSpark. If we get significant dips from here, which will come, Bitcoin's always volatile, yeah, I'll buy more shares of CleanSpark. But with that, I'm going to end this video here. Comment down below your cost basis in CleanSpark if you're comfortable sharing that information. With that, have a great rest of your day. Stay blessed. Keep 10 toes to the ground and your chin up. Peace out.